Hello, fellow runners, and welcome back to the Running Amok podcast. I'm Roemer, and I'm joined by my incredible co-hosts, Heidi and Meg. Today, we're going to be diving into the topic of mobility and how it affects your overall health. And some people might be rather shocked about what that might say about your overall health and how important it is to stay mobile and flexible. Future Mike here. I just want to let you know some of the technical difficulties that we had to deal with this particular podcast. I completely forgot to start the vocal recorder about 15 minutes into our first attempt to record the podcast.
Too low, and people can be too flexible, which then leads into being able to have that.
What?
I never turned the recorder on.
Which recorder?
This one.
Oh, rats.
Oh, wow.
We had to completely start over. We had one camera that decided to stop recording altogether.
Action.
Whoa, what just happened?
Oh, no. What is happening? Simple.
Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid.
I don't know what is up with that camera, but I'm just about done with it. One of the cameras decided to fall over.
Take a squat that we talked about last week. And
Camera
Down she goes.
I'm going to pause this for a minute. When it fell over, it shifted this camera, and that caused us to lose half of Meg's face. So we had to get a little creative with Meg's appearance on the podcast. So I apologize for that. Remember, we're just learning, and these are all steps in learning how to do this podcast.
we are coming undone. Maybe this week is just all about the bloopers.
Yeah, the bloopers.
There we go.
Now back to the regularly scheduled program.
Last week we focused mainly on just the startup of the podcast in general, editing difficulties, new equipment. We chatted a little bit about who we all are. Roemer does have a very special equipment update. It's exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys heard how bad my microphone was last week, so I bought a new microphone.
The green color is beautiful.
The same as Meg's. And I picked up this cool little Zoom recorder, which I forgot to turn on the first time we tried to record this.
Heidi and I both have no idea what any of this stuff really does, but Roemer does.
Yep.
And it's nice.
This is the reason I'm doing this. And I spent most of last week trying to just get the footage imported into the program, because I'd never have edited something so large in DaVinci. And it just was like clogging up everything. A 10 gigabyte file was turning into 100 gigabytes and totally clogging up the computer. And every problem I had took me at least a couple of hours to research and resolve. And it wasn't until Friday, I think, that I was able to actually just start editing. And the real kicker is all that stuff is going to take me about 10 minutes. Already having technical difficulties.
We're getting settled in here. He just has to clamp it right on.
It's going to take me about 10 minutes to do this time around.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to do all the research and I know what's wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's our update on equipment-wise. It's going really well. We're becoming very professional. Besides Roemer's microphone falling off the table right now.
Working out the kinks.
Getting out the kinks, but that's what we're here for. You can watch along with us. We definitely are not perfect at the pod yet, but we will be.
The worse this is, the better the series goes, because you get to see our progression into a more professional podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
No fails.
we may or may not be acting.
Yeah, and we may or may not be glowing up, as one may say, my age. We might end up dressing fancier. We might end up talking better, speaking more pronunciation-wise.
We got plants.
We got plants.
Yeah.
And we put them on Roemer's junk, the drum set.
My junk set.
I just want to say, I had a white shirt on earlier, and 10 minutes into wearing it, there was a spot on it.
Oh, God.
So
Just
try
don't
again.
wear green.
Oh.
If you wear green, in fact, this blue is kind of pushing it. They'll turn it into a green screen.
Oh, geez, really?
That's why
So
you
am
never
I going to
see
have
people.
a green screen?
That's not green enough.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
Interesting.
That typical green screen color you see in the movies and stuff.
Turn into just a head.
Yeah.
It doesn't take very much computing power to just erase your shirt and put any other video feed on it.
Oh,
Well, I'm glad
interesting.
that that's
All right.
a kind of ugly color to wear. because
Okay.
I don't think I'll be doing that.
I almost wore that color today.
That's scary. You
Last
should get rid of that.
year's Holyoke race
Oh,
shirt,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
which is a really bright green.
Yeah.
By the way, the Holyoke race this year is record-breaking numbers of applicants registered. So,
and for
gonna be
anyone
huge.
who doesn't know what that race is, in Holyoke, Massachusetts, they have a big race near St. Patrick's Day, not always on it, but almost. And it's very popular for people who like to drink and who like to party, and it's this huge race. It's 6 miles long, 7 miles long. It's a 10K, right?
Oh, I didn't.
10K.
Yeah, so 6.2 miles,
I didn't
and
realize that.
it's like this huge crowd of people, and they all just go running down this road, and there's like parties all on the lawns, and it's crazy. It's really wild. So Roemer and I are doing it.
The Rogue Running podcast likes to dissect races, and that's probably a good one to quickly dissect.
That'd be crazy.
Because it's up, it's kind of rolling in the first
Yeah.
half, and it's the first time I ran it. They had an inflatable arch that I thought was the finish line at the halfway point.
Yeah, they
I
do
had
that. Uh-huh.
no idea it was a 10K. I
Yeah.
ran it like it was a 5K, and I got to that arch. I'm like, I am
Feel-
done.
Oh no.
Why are they not stopping?
Oh my god.
Where are they going? And I look, they're going up a mile-long
Oh
hill.
no.
Yeah, the
It's-
hill is insane. They have
Wow.
multiple, but my favorite part is when you cross the finish line, they hand out puke bags because everyone is so intoxicated from the jello shots, the beers, the ice luges along the way that people are just
And
throwing
that
up
hill.
everywhere, and they just hand out the puke bags. You're walking around, there's like old men, young kids, like all around, like it's all ages. It's a huge party, but it's not a bad party. It's like it's fun. But people do throw up a lot, which is an interesting one as well.
It's a nice last 2 miles, though. It is
Yeah, it's
2
fun.
miles, nice gradual downhill.
Yeah.
You can make up all the time from walking up that mile-long hill.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, I think I clocked
I didn't
at,
realize
like,
that of that race.
Yeah, I think
It's
it was
really good.
6:45 in the last.
Wow. Roemer really has some jets
Yeah,
on him. He can really go.
does.
I
I
just don't
tried
have
to
the
race him. I
stamina.
can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyways.
going
yes.
back full circle. So we got our new equipment discussed, and now I guess I'll talk to you all about what we're going to be discussing this week, which is mobility. So Heidi is our level 3 CrossFit coach. She's pretty good with the mobility, I would say. She likes to squat sometimes when we run. I see it for myself, and it looks pretty good, but I'm not one to judge. But anyway, she's going to be taking over this conversation and leading us through the mobility discussion.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start off by asking if either of you know what the difference is between mobility and flexibility.
Not a clue.
So mobility could be perhaps the joints, and flexibility could be the muscles, because like when a yoga girl is like, she's flexible, like she's got these long muscles,
Yes.
you know? And like mobility, maybe it's like, ow, the joints, like how much can they move?
Yeah, you are correct. Mobility has to do with the joints. Flexibility has more to do with the muscles, tendons, and ligaments and how much they're able to lengthen and contract. So, of course, flexibility and mobility go hand in hand because if you're not flexible, you can't be mobile. But the mobility is what keeps us injury free because it keeps us in that full range of motion, which is what is important, especially for runners. And I can speak for myself as a CrossFitter. I stretch all the time. I stretch before, I stretch after. As a runner, the most important thing to me before a run is to set my watch. And the most important thing afterwards is to shut the watch off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not stretch. I am horrible at that. And I can tell when I don't stretch, when other runners don't stretch, because runners are very tight in their hamstrings.
And
Very,
you were
very tight.
saying earlier, we were talking before the podcast, that a lot of people who have office jobs or sit
Yeah.
when they drive a lot, they also have tight hamstrings. So it's kind of similar to runners.
Yeah, people who sit sedentary. And as a personal trainer, I work with a lot of people, and right away I can tell when their hamstrings are tight, first off. But that's my first question to them is, do you have an office job or do you drive for a living? And usually the answer is yes, because they cannot stretch. Your hamstrings are on the back side of your leg. Your quads are on the front. Yep.
You have to think about that from time to time, like which one's which.
Yeah, the hamstrings are on your backside. So, yeah, and so we were talking about squats last week. I was talking about squats and how I think squats are so important. Squats are the foundation of a lot of our functional fitness and our day-to-day activities, such as sitting on a toilet or peeing in the woods if there's not a toilet around for you. But in a squat, if you start from the bottom up, you've got if your ankles are not mobile in the joints, if your calves are not stretched, if your hamstrings are tight, if your quads are tight, it even works up to your knees and your hips or your joints. Your spine is involved in there, and even your shoulders, because as you squat, you want to come forward, which then throws your balance off. So a squat is a good way to determine what your overall health is. I'm not talking, what's the word I'm looking for? The your mobility.
Yeah, your
just
mobility.
Your overall mobility and your injury prevention as well.
So I have a question. When I used to do CrossFit, I would squat too low, and people would tell me it was like below a point. Is that good? Should we keep going?
It is not the camera we need.
Okay. So we can leave it. It's fine. All right.
Yeah, we have possessed cameras. We have one that fell, and one keeps turning on and off. So.
Yeah. Anyways, so when I did CrossFit, I always was told by the coaches and Heidi too, I think, I would squat too low and like my hips would like tuck underneath myself. Like, why is that so bad?
Well, so that's what CrossFit coaches call a butt wink. And it's when, I don't prefer to call it a butt wink, but if you can picture a spine, your spine's supposed to look like this. And at the bottom, like this will be where my butt is, this side. On the bottom, your spine has a natural curve to it. But when you come down in a squat, there's a point where your butt will tuck under. And that's what they call the wink there. And it'll tuck under. And if you're just sitting in that third world squat, it's okay to sit low and let everything just hang there. Yeah, it actually loose. It feels good if you're flexible enough to do it. But it feels good for me because it feels great on my lower back.
Yeah, like your SI joint feels so relaxed when you're able to squat like that.
And I do it, and that's when I'm running and I just kind of squat because it feels great on my back. But if you put load on a squat, and by putting load I'm meaning a barbell or weights or some kind of load in that way. Now your spine is doing this, and it's rubbing against, and those joints are coming against, and I don't want to get too far out of my scope of practice here, but that's where injuries can happen in your lower spine from squatting too much.
Out of line. You're not perfectly straight, so then your muscles aren't perfectly comfortable, perhaps, and
it's more of the position of your spine and where you're putting that spine.
So I have a question. Why do you keep yelling at me for not going low enough?
That's a range of motion. So the people that will squat above parallel. So, okay, in the CrossFit world, you want to get your butt lower than the crook of your knees is what we say.
That's hard for me to do.
Yeah. So I'm going to just throw this out here. You probably have tight calves.
No, my legs are just massive and I can't move them.
Rome's a tank.
Tank is right.
He does beach body.
So if your heels come up off the ground as you're squatting, it could be your calves are really tight or your ankles, kind of fit together. So
I have to consciously try to pick my toes up off the ground in order to not stand on my toes doing a squat.
Yeah, and then that's the balance comes in too. So now your core comes in to keep you balanced as well, and there's a lot going on in a squat. So
very interesting. So now I have an interesting question for you. We didn't prepare this, but I think it could be helpful for anyone who's watching. Do you have some maybe like 2 or 3 tips that people can do to help improve their mobility or flexibility just every day? Like, for example, for me, I do not stretch at all. I don't do anything to try and improve either of those things. Like, if I could take 5 to 10 minutes of my day, what are a couple things that I could do?
Okay. So if we keep the squat in mind, when you're squatting, you've got so flexibility, I think, would be the first step to go on. So there's the calves involved. There's the calves are what's the back side of your lower leg behind the knee and down to your ankles. Your quads are in the front part of your legs. Hamstrings are in the back part of your legs. Then there's the butt, the gluteus maximus medius. The glutes. We got the glutes there. So, and then you have your core as well. But as runners, we'll just use runners as an example. We use our calves a lot to run. Massive, yes. Massively use those calves. So one easy way to stretch your calves out is to put so here's a wall, put your toe up on the wall your heel down, and then push your body into the wall.
Ooh.
So if
So,
it's
like, you're,
the
like,
wall,
leaning.
so my foot is up and I'm pulling myself into the wall with a straight leg. So that gets those calves in there.
I love that stretch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that
good
sounds
one.
really good.
That's a good one. You can also come down onto the ground, and if you need a further stretch in a similar way.
Interesting.
Yeah, those are good calf stretches for the hamstrings. I would suggest
I always do
reaching
toe
down to your
touches.
toes. Yeah, just bending in half, reaching down to your toes, trying to keep your legs as straight as possible. If you can't reach your toes, then reach for your knees.
One more question. How long should you be holding each of these? Like 30 seconds?
So it's best to stretch your muscles when they're warmer.
So, like, workout and then stretch?
So I would suggest a little warm up, and I think this is where runners just launch into it because they don't want to stop and go. But you'll see at races, those serious runners, they'll be running laps around just quickly, kind of sprinting back and forth. They're getting their blood flowing, the muscles warm, the neurological system all fired up.
They're
and
the
then they
ones
will
that are
too.
spamming Strava with their warm up and
Yeah.
cool down
The
runs.
0.5 mile warm up,
Yep.
the
Yes.
1 mile cool down.
You know who you are.
Yeah, so annoying. Kidding. That's great for you,
Yes,
but it's not me.
We'll keep seeing them at races because
Yes.
they'll
I'm
be
only
injury free.
jealous
Exactly.
because I don't
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're the ones that are talented. They're injury free.
Yeah. So you'll see them, for example, maybe doing butt kicks or high knees. Those are called dynamic stretches.
So they're like active.
Yes, they are active stretches to get those cooler muscles going. And then after the run, it's what you call a static stretch. So that's where instead of a butt kick, they're going to grab their ankle from behind and hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the longer you hold it, I don't know, a good 20 seconds, 30 seconds would be enough to hold it on each
So
side.
that's like our warm up. And then the cool down, you could stretch pretty much like as long as you want. Just keep going. It's relaxing. Like hold each stretch maybe like what, 30 seconds, a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you would just grab your behind you and hold it. Yep.
Interesting. So what do you think about the pigeon one? I love that stretch. That's my favorite one.
I love the pigeon stretch. That would be a more static stretch, one that you would want to
That's
hold.
at the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would do that for the end. I mean, you can do it in the beginning too, but it's harder to do that as a dynamic stretch. Although you said that the figure 4
It's pretty close to the
that's the pigeon. That's what I would give someone in a modification if they could not come down to the ground all the way. So you can do the
And you
figure
can do
4.
it on your back if you're not good with,
Right.
of course, trying to find.
You can do it sitting in a chair
Yeah.
if you need to.
Yeah, well, we're not going to do it here.
No, we won't. So maybe
We don't have much
maybe
room.
Roemer, you can put some links in the
Yeah.
comments
Or
as
some
to what
pictures
these
across the
stretches
screen,
are.
perhaps.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll put the
There you go.
links right next to all the links to all the new equipment we have.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
there you go.
To get
exciting.
those
Yep.
affiliate links going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the figure 4 or the pigeon stretch opens up the hips for a good mobility stretch, but it also stretches the hamstrings. The adductors is involved in squats as well. I didn't mention those. So there's a lot of things that it fits, but mobility for the hips and
That's a stretch that is the only one that will actually relieve the tension in my hip. I was talking about how I got that bursitis was my second running injury, and that's when I started doing that stretch, and I've been doing it now for 10 years. Except for recently. I don't know why I stopped stretching after runs in the last like 3 months, but
Yeah.
that's our goal then. We will do some more stretching, squatting, stretching.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yes.
so when I was doing the track work, the coach had us doing a 1 mile warm up and then the dynamic stretches before we got into our speed work. So
Smart coach.
yeah, and I remember doing all the high knees, butt kickers, and was that when you walk sideways? I don't
Karaoke, grapevine. I called them a couple
karaoke.
of things, yeah.
That's what it looks like. Whatever it is, you.
It's like over. That's a bad example.
Oh, that's a fancy one. Yeah, I've seen that.
Karaoke. Yeah,
like a
that
dance move.
warms up your core and your adductors as well. Yeah, glutes probably involved in there. Yeah.
So you could easily shave 5-10 seconds off of your mile time in a race if you just warmed up and did that without really putting much other effort into the race itself.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us run stiff anyways.
Yeah. Well, think about the longer. So we generally run 6 miles. Say on an average, we'll run 6 miles at at each time that we run.
Yeah.
And it usually takes us a good 2 miles to get going and settle in. I know
mentally
for myself.
and physically.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we have now turned into our warm up for our warm up to our 6 mile run.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Never judge a run by the first mile.
No.
yeah.
Even
that's why, because
to
our
be
body
honest.
needs to warm up.
Yeah. And I think that kind of segues us into our next part. Roemer.
I am monitoring the kids upstairs. Sorry.
I heard screaming while you were talking. I was like, do I stop him?
No, Mike's just talking.
Boy
loud,
yelling.
So
Okay.
we're good.
Yeah.
I don't know much about children. It just sounds like he's dying up there.
No,
Nope.
that's being a boy.
He,
Oh,
He's probably
okay.
playing with dinosaurs or something.
Probably. Oh my god.
Hulk smash.
Literally, that monitor's like all red, like the
It'd be funny
volume.
if this comes into our monitors or our
It literally.
noise.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
think I
God.
hear a little bit on your mic, but
Yeah,
it
it's
just
fine.
add to the character.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, so that part kind of brings into the mental health part. So mobility, flexibility, your physical health also plays a role in your mental health, and the mental health also plays a role in the physical health. We're all one as a body. So next week we're going to be focusing on mental health and exercise together. But we're just going to talk a little bit about each run that we've had this week, specifically to each of us, maybe different runs, but we've all had some difficulty with some struggles this week, both physically and mentally. So we figured we'd kind of start the conversation on that, and then we can move into next week.
All right.
Who wants to go?
I can start off on a run. I can say I've been down a vehicle this week. There's 6 vehicles I have to choose from, and there's days I don't have a single one.
Heidi's got a big family.
Yeah. I have lots of drivers in the household that I live in, and I'm pretty flexible with finding rides or having a vehicle. At any rate, my sister was very kind to bring me places, even at 4:30 in the morning, because I work very early in the morning. And there was one situation that I didn't want her to go out of the way to bring me to a chiropractor appointment, which is something that I find keeps me in line with my mobility. My lower spine gets kind of jammed up sometimes, and then it throws my whole body off. So I'm on a schedule where I can go to the chiropractor. So I canceled my chiropractor appointment so that I didn't put my sister out of her way, because I didn't have a vehicle, because my son's vehicle is broken down. So I canceled that appointment. Come and find out, I could have gone to the appointment.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it's rescheduled for Monday, which leads me to Saturday's run. My back was really tight, so I started off, instead of stretching and using that first moment before we headed off up the tall hill that we went
We
on.
all wanted to bail yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep, I wanted to bail. So
We
I
didn't,
was tight.
though.
Yeah, my back was tight. I was tired. It was just one of those weeks, and the alarm went off, and I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do this. I saw that it was snowing outside.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, good reason to bail out. Roemer said no, but we did push it 30
My
minutes.
back was
so.
hurting all Friday, and it didn't let me sleep all night Friday night. So I watched the clock in the back of my eyelids Friday night until you texted us, and it's snowing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it really was not.
Roemer was not empathetic in that moment.
It wasn't even snowing. It was a flurry.
It was literally like barely spitting.
It wasn't sticking to the ground.
Heidi's like, guys, it's snowing a
yeah,
little.
I'm like, oh, unsafe. We must stay home.
oh my God.
but we all managed to get out there.
Yeah,
We did.
and we even did an extra mile. We thought we were going to do 6.
Right.
We did 7. So we really, we went one more in that moment,
Yeah.
And that
which is
extra
good.
mile turned my day around.
Yeah.
Because I was pretty miserable for the first 5.
Yeah, and we ran
6,
7.
I don't remember, but as soon as we were on that 7th mile or so getting back there, I'm like, oh, I finally feel good on this run.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes it
yeah.
takes that long, like an hour and a half, to really like snap yourself out of it, even like not physically, but mentally for sure.
And Roemer,
Yeah.
you made me run up that hill too. I'm like, I'm totally walking
Yeah.
this hill. You're like, no, you're not. I'm like, oh,
Roemer,
son of a bitch.
Roemer's doing this new thing where he cracks the whip when we walk up hills. Apparently this year we're running all the hills,
Yep,
so
run
we
all the
can
hills.
stop at the
Yeah.
top if we want, but then we feel kind of guilty for stopping at the top, so we just stop like real quick instead of like walking slowly up the whole hill. So it's kind of a better improvement. It's been a resolution.
I
It's
hate
really not
stopping
difficult.
at the bottom of a hill,
Yes.
and then you cool off a little bit, and then you
Yeah.
have to start running up a
Yeah,
hill.
it makes no sense. Might as well
And
just finish
you're just
it.
like spiking your heart rate and your effort, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like to try and get up that hill
Yes.
before taking that break.
Yeah.
In some of the streets around here, you get into an intersection, like, oh, this is a good place to take a break.
Yeah.
And you look up.
It's very hilly around here.
So-
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like the same thing that happened to me on one run that I had this past week that was difficult. It wasn't necessarily yesterday's run. I didn't want to run. I wasn't motivated, but I felt okay, like mentally, physically. All right, it wasn't too bad. But Monday last week was definitely really hard for me. I was really sore because I had run a good amount that weekend, and I also have been sitting a lot with work, so I feel like I go from sitting and then I run and then I sit again. I don't do like a lot of walking, and I'm realizing that's kind of playing a toll on me. So physically, I was sore on Monday. Mentally, I was stressed because I'm moving back into my house. I had rented it out for a year so I could travel a bit. So I'm like cleaning it. I knew that was coming up and preparing everything. So just mentally, I was like, I'm wasting time running. I shouldn't be running. And then halfway through, I'm like, why am I like just complaining this entire time? I might as well just finish this run. And then I got the 13 miles in and it was fine. But like mentally, it's hard to drag yourself through those runs especially when you feel like you should be doing something else and you feel guilt.
It's hard to settle in.
You,
Yeah.
you never feel like you wasted a run after you're done.
After a
Never.
run, right?
But if you bail on a run,
Oh,
it's horrible.
that
this leads
yeah.
me into exactly what we talked about on our run the other day. Roemer said from someone that you always take the easiest route. Our minds always go to what's easiest.
Yeah.
Explain that. I didn't
So-
believe it, but now I do.
all of our choices are based on the path with the least pain or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And it could be something as simple as, well, if you're going to choose between a run and not a run, the run is going to be painful and exhausting, so you might choose to sit on the couch, which would seem to most people to be the obvious choice. Except for runners, especially ones that have been established for a while.
Yeah, or in a training plan.
Yeah. You know that the path that's going to cause the most pain is the one that is where you do sit on the couch and feel regret and remorse because you didn't go on that run.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't believe it when I first heard it.
Yeah.
And now when they explained it that way, it makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
That's where you need to find your motivation,
Yes.
is that when you don't do what you had set out to do, how are you going to feel about that afterwards?
Yes. That's exactly what I was going through that day is like, I know if I don't run, I'm going to feel even worse than than the alternate, but like running is just something that is able to clear my mind, especially. So even when I feel like it's still like guilty, I'm telling myself, you have to finish it. You got to get it done because in reality, it is the easier route for me. Otherwise, my whole day is going to be ruined because I'll sit with guilt. Like, oh, you cut that run short. You never went. Oh, you forgot to run today. Oh, you're lazy, which is probably also really bad. I need to learn how to chill. But we can talk about that in a whole nother episode, learning how to rest. That's really difficult for some people.
That sounds like a...
I'm going to have to go figure out what that is.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
that is definitely...
And that's the steps. And most of the time, it does not work, per the author. Yeah. Anyways.
Right.
Yeah. So
Crisis averted.
Yes.
His iPad died.
Oh my God. His iPad died and he's crying like that.
Well, join the club.
Yeah.
Our stuff is dying
All
down
of our
here,
stuff
too.
is dying.
And he has a Kindle here, an iPad here. He's playing on the Kindle and watching videos on the iPad. And he's mad because the iPad died.
Sounds like a kid these days.
Yeah.
That's technology for you. Yeah, so I guess like that pretty much wraps up everything in regards to mobility in today's main topic. We moved into the mental health for next week, and we'll discuss that further. I have a book that I guess I can chat about real quick. It's called Trust, and it's by Dr. Henry Cloud, and I've been listening to that on Spotify audiobooks. I normally listen to one, and then I'll read a different book at the same time. So this one is called Trust, Dr. Henry Cloud. It's very good. I'm almost done with it. And it talks about regaining trust with people, knowing who to trust, and why most people are trustworthy as long as they can like identify where they need to change their actions. So that kind of goes with my current mental health dilemmas, I suppose, because it's something I've been working on recently because I do sometimes struggle to trust people. So I thought it could be interesting to chat about a bit more. And it's a great book, so I'd recommend it, but I can talk more about that next week. But
I would love to hear that. I have trust issues, definitely.
I think everyone does to an extent, which is what the book says, because, you know, our life experience jade us in some ways, but it's learning how to accept it and then move on. There's like 5 steps, but
Yeah, no. If we're throwing out book references, there's The Supple Leopard is a
Ooh,
great book about
kinda
mobility. And that's
Supple
written
Leopard.
by Kelly Starrett, who is a physical therapist and also a CrossFitter. And he's very knowledgeable, has lots of videos too. You can YouTube him as well.
Yeah, I'm just reading a series, Pierce Brown, called Red Rising.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, still on that one?
Yeah, I'm
How's it going?
halfway through the 3rd book.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
you've moved along since we've talked
Yeah.
last. Yeah.
So it's supposed to be a trilogy, and now there's 6 books.
Ooh. Still going?
Yeah,
Perhaps?
I'm not sure on that one. Last I checked, it's going to be some sort of streaming service series.
And is that sci-fi fiction? Like, what is it?
It's
What genre?
it's the same genre as The Hunger Games.
Okay, so kind of like sci-fi-y, but not fully,
It's
not too out of touch.
It takes place in the whole solar system,
I'd love
mostly
that.
on Mars and some moons and stuff. There's
Yeah.
terraforming going on. And the twist with this one, if you're going to compare it to The Hunger Games, is it's not the lowest of the society that have to participate in this event. It's the highest people in society that have to go through it. So it's an interesting
interesting.
twist, and it's not just a couple of days. It's a very long time.
Yeah.
But it's all about the low colors, as they call them, trying to fight their way to freedom and stuff.
Interesting. Which also plays into politics these days, which is very interesting. I have one other really interesting thing to say because I think people would be fascinated with it. So, if anyone didn't know, I own an online English school, and on Saturday mornings, I teach a group of advanced students. And one person is from Moscow, Russia. She's a little older than me. Another one from the Czech Republic. She's on the EU Parliament, like on the board, like an actual member. Brilliant. Another one, a journalist from Germany, and then a few people from Brazil, Mexico, and then myself. So it's very worldly perspective. And then we talked about the recent passing away, not murder, but in Russia that happened to Alexei, what's his name? Alexei Navalny. And it was very interesting, all the different perspectives. So I think that is similar to what Roemer was talking about, because in Russia, they seem to be struggling with the lower class having more of a voice and perspective than the very upper and specifically political class. So I just thought it'd be really interesting to eventually talk more about that too, because I'm really interested in Russia specifically. It's just like an interesting topic for me. Yeah, so we did presentations yesterday, and it was really interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Anyways, so I think that's it for today.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for getting this far, and don't forget to like and subscribe and all that stuff that they want you to do on YouTube. And eventually, we're going to get on to an actual podcasting streaming service, and we're just going to keep moving forward with this. Every week, we're going to try and get a little better. My goal this week is to edit out the dead space, which we've got quite a bit of it between the cameras falling, kids screaming. And, so,
You might hear that in the background. I can hear him over there on the monitor.
So I'm just going to improve the technique of editing this week. I think next week we need to work on cameras.
Yes.
Because I think this one finally started going again. Nope, it's just on.
Cameras, and I'd like to be able to clear my phone out so it has enough storage, and then like prop it up somewhere up here and do it the vertical way. That way I can make reels easier, and I'll just record the whole thing like that and then edit it myself separate from the podcast. So I think that could be interesting too.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
thanks for watching,
thanks for
and we
listening.
will see you next week on the Running Amok podcast.
See you next week, and don't forget to do your mobility exercises.
Yes.
Stretch.
Yay! Bye.